script for me to go through, which is a little bit off point with office session, because really I think the priority for our office session isn't to necessarily present and talk to you. It's more to have a conversation about issues, questions, things you may have with programs at the Department of Commerce. Maybe we could do just a very, very quick introduction kind of the program areas that we have. Then we can open it up for questions, and then if there are none, we can go into a further description of the actual programs. Sorry, I'm kind of letting people in as I talk. But I first wanted to make sure that if folks have questions out of the chute, that we just start chatting. So I'm going to start. My name's Bruce Brenstall. I'm with Montana Housing. I work in our multifamily area and can answer questions about some of those programs. Julie Hope.
My name is Julie Hope, and I work at Montana Housing, and I'm in the single family home ownership program, so I can speak to those programs.
Julie Flynn.
Morning, I'm Julie Flynn with the Community Housing Group within Montana Housing, and we oversee grant funds that we get from HUD and I'll talk about those a little more later. Yeah, thanks.
And Kelly Shields.
Morning, I'm Kelly Shields. I'm the rental assistance programs manager, and we do all of the rental assistance outside of the MIRA program through the Montana Housing.
Stephanie.
I'm Stephanie Kreider, and I am the Housing Choice Voucher Program Supervisor under the Rental Assistance Programs umbrella, also known as Tenant-Based Section 8.
And we also have Nicole McKeith on, who is with multifamily, but she has most of the answers for everything. And then Cheryl Cohen has all the answers, who's the executive director of Montana Housing. So let's just open it up. And if you guys have a question, I think you certainly could put it in the chat, but it might be just more effective to unmute yourself and ask. So anything on your mind you want to know about, this is where you'll learn all our secrets. Go ahead and ask.
Well, Bruce, I'll start you off. I guess selfishly, it'd be kind of nice to hear from you guys on the restructure, and maybe it's not super new, but that everybody's under the same umbrella and kind of the nuances with that. If you guys are finding some efficiencies there, maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Want me to take that one?
Do you mind? I mean, I could probably do it. You're much better at it. You're in the know.
Yeah, so the main change that happened with Commerce with our reorg earlier I guess last year, is that Julie's team, the community housing programs that do CDBG for housing, the home program and the HTF program, moved from the community development division, which is now going by the name Community MT, to Montana Housing. And so I think the goal with that was to consolidate all of the affordable housing programs under the housing division. When you get down to the in the weeds logistics, there's always things that you of course don't anticipate, or it was well, let's get the reorg done and we'll worry about all of those pesky little details later. Turns out those pesky little details, there were some hurdles that we had to deal with, and Julie can probably speak more to those. But a lot of logistics around, moving the budget authority between the two divisions, and, how does payroll function? And in particular, Julie's team is still working on community development block grant, as is the community MT team. And because those are all under the HUD CPD framework with the consolidated plan and the annual action plans. I think we do have regular meetings with the community division to make sure that we're all on the same page on how we're allocating those funds and making sure that we're meeting, timely distribution requirements and everything else. So I think, at the top level, hopefully it was still seen as a good idea to keep all the housing programs together, but you can't do that without collaboration on the other end. So I don't know if Julie has any more that she would like to speak on it, because she was kind of the primary impacted person.
Just that I think within the Department of Commerce, we still have great opportunities to coordinate efforts between the housing and community development and economic development groups, and making sure that we're all moving in the same direction and not stepping on each other's toes. So far it's been good, and I think it will continue to help us out. Yeah. And I could have said, I guess, a bit more at the introduction for those who aren't highly involved in all of our programs, that Montana receives HUD grants through, or we receive an allocation of funds through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for 3 grant programs: the Community Development Block Grant Program, known as CDBG, the Home Investment Partnership Program, and the Housing Trust Fund. And each of those grant programs has their own special requirements that we all get to keep track of, and try to make that as seamless for our external partners as possible. But they all involve income restrictions on those who benefit from the funds, as well as rental rent limits and purchase price limits. So we do a variety of things with our grant funds, from rehabilitating existing properties and constructing new rental properties, new single-family properties, rehabilitating single-family properties, and providing down payment and closing cost assistance for home buyers. So in coordination with all the other programs highlighted here today, we have a variety of tools to help our partners make sure that folks in Montana have great places to live.
Hey, Julie, since you're talking already, can you just update folks a little on some of the, the work we're doing between programs, like compliance sites visits and things like that? I think that would be interesting for folks to know.
That Nicole's group, I saw Ryan Culver on as well. For the compliance piece, we recognize that we have funds in properties. The multifamily folks, Nicole McKeith's group, have funds in properties, Cold Trust loans, all of those. And as well as Stephanie's group, they're out doing inspections. Diana Culver's group is out doing inspections. So we recognize that's a lot for not only property managers, but particularly for the residents who live there. Before we came on, I had to do a dust check behind me to make sure that you can't see the dust. And I certainly don't want 6 people traipsing through my house on a regular basis. So we, in an attempt to minimize that disruption for the residents who live in the properties we've helped finance, we're trying to coordinate between the home program and the HTF program and the tax credit program, how often we are in units. Still trying to do the property inspections as we can get out there. But if tax credit folks are going to be, if Ryan's group is going to be out looking in units, we'll accept those unit inspections and vice versa, just to minimize disruption to residents.
I know we've mentioned that before in the past to some staff that are on, but that's really important to us for our residents. So we really appreciate you guys working. It's not simple to mix the alphabet soup and the requirements, but if there's something we can do as owners or prepare the property managers, files we can get you in advance if you're covering somebody's like Ryan's covering something for another program, just let us know, because we really do appreciate it's less impact on the residents. It can be a little burdensome to work to live in a tax credit home HTF affordable housing program project. So we appreciate that.
Thanks, Heather. Good questions. Anyone else? Any questions out of the chute that you guys want to talk to us about, ask us, thoughts you might have? We'd really like to hear from you guys, so please.
So we might have a contingent folks that are maybe more on the services side or doing direct client services. And so one of the questions that we're asked to present about a lot is, how do I help my client access affordable housing opportunities? So one of the best places to start, particularly if a household is very low or extremely low income, is to have them apply for our Housing Choice Voucher waitlist. And you can go to housing.mt.gov, go to the rental assistance page for Housing Choice Vouchers, and your client can apply for the region that they'd like to be on the waitlist for. The waitlist times do vary by region, depending on the demand. We just completed our annual purge of the wait list. So we reach out to everyone that's on the wait list, and if they don't respond back, they do get dropped from the wait list. That's why it's important to keep your name and contact information and mailing address current with our staff. So that's kind of option one. So there is a wait time involved to get your own tenant-based voucher. We also have posted on our website in various places, there's the list of the project-based Section 8 properties. And the owners of those properties manage the wait list themselves. And so you can reach out to those properties individually to inquire about wait list or if they have open vacancies. And the same goes with low-income housing tax credit properties. Those wait lists and application processes are managed by the property management companies for those as well. But we also have those listed on our website. And then finally, there is the housing, I think is it housing search mt.gov? I'm going to miss or is it MT housing search? And yeah. I can, post it in the chat, but it's like Craigslist, but it's for affordable rental properties specifically. And so that's another option that both landlords or property management companies can post their available units there. And you can go and search for available affordable housing openings for your client on that website.
Good advice, Cheryl. I think we've got all sorts of different levels of experience. And Eileen, did you have a question? I see you popped up, and then we'll let Heather go after you.
I do have a question, and I know I'm late, so did anybody already ask you about the maximum 5% increases on tax credit units for rents?
No.
No. Okay, then I'm going to ask. And the question I'm going to ask is a scenario where a person in a tax credit unit, has a housing choice voucher. And so if the rent is below the tax credit maximum and below the payment standard for the housing choice voucher, we could just mathematically raise the rent, say 7%. They'd still be within the payment standard for the housing choice voucher, and therefore the tenant would feel no rent increase at all. They're still paying 30% of their income. The voucher will make up the new rent, and so it will feel like nothing to them, but it's a 7% rent increase. Would that be allowed or not allowed under the rules for a max 5% increase?
Yes, that's allowed, as long as it's really to protect tenants that are paying rent and to have those huge rent increases affecting their budgets. So as long as the household has a voucher, and it could be a voucher from Housing Choice or any other housing choice voucher program, as long as it effectively doesn't affect the tenant, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, great. I
may want to chime in there, and I want to ping Stephanie as well, but if I recall right, Stephanie, I think there is, when you're leasing up a tenant-based voucher, usually the property manager or the owner is asked to provide some rent comps. So the housing choice voucher side has a separate compliance requirement where they're looking to make sure that the rent you're charging to a housing choice voucher client is not different than a rent you're charging to other clients or other tenants in comparable units.
Right.
So if you only do a 5% rent increase for the tenants that don't have a voucher, but do a 7% rent increase for tenants that do have a voucher, Stephanie, jump in, but I think that may be a no-no from the housing choice voucher side of things, because you're treating that housing choice voucher tenant differently than other tenants.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. That's a HUD rule that we have to, in properties where there are more than 4 units to them. So a complex that has more than 4 units, you have to, as the landlord, sign off on what the rents are for comparable units of the same size. And they have to be the unassisted units. So if it's a 1-bedroom and you're raising it from $500 to $600, I know that's more than 7%, but let's just go with simple math. And all the other 1-bedrooms are still at 500, then we would be asking questions about that, because in HUD's eyes, you would be treating the housing choice voucher differently than the unassisted households. We also run rent comparables through affordablehousing.com to make sure that the units that our voucher holders are in are not paying more than unassisted households of comparable sizes and unit type in the same area. So we've been coming across some issues where the tax credit limits are, say, higher than our voucher limits, and they're being raised quite a bit, but it turns out that they're not actually comparable on the open market, and therefore we cannot approve those rents. And so we try to balance on those 2 different levels.
Okay, and that makes sense. We've got a crazy property where some very long-time tenants that were there before a rehab got to continue in the property at dramatically cheap rents, like $300, and they've been getting 3% rent increases, and then somebody got a voucher. And so we're wondering, can we actually raise this rent from 300 to the 800 that all the other units are at under the tax credit program, if it won't hurt the tenant? So we're trying to balance both worlds.
And I think if you've got a project that's got tax credits and home in it, then you get the added level of home, low and high home, and there's other implications for that if we want to get super in the weeds, I'm sure Julie could talk to.
Yeah, layering all those things. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
So generally you can, as long as you stay straight with Stephanie.
Okay, we'll start with Stephanie and go, if we wanted to do this, okay.
Heather, what do you got?
Well, I was going to ask one thing, Cheryl, about the legislature and what we see upcoming. But before I do that, I want to spend some time on the 5% rent limitation in the qualified allocation plan. One thing that we should have shared with Nicole as a topic for our QAP sessions would be looking at that rule of the limit of the 5%. We were ones that applauded that and helped write that into the qualified allocation plan, because we never want to harm the tenants. One of the issues that we're looking at is trying to preserve homes, right, and try to maintain. And so we would like to open up the discussion on a case-by-case basis, potentially, of being able to get a waiver on that. There are a lot of purely tax credit projects without the rest of the alphabet soup on this call in it that are coming to bear on our real estate market is just absolutely outrageous right now, as we all know, from rentals to home buying and all of the above. But we're going to lose tax credit projects because out-of-state investors are looking to purchase projects in Bozeman or Missoula or larger scale projects for 3 to 5 million more than they're worth. And so one of the tools that we could do, so we don't, and then buy them, hold them, let the requirements expire, because a lot of those are happening. And Nicole showed a great graph where that's going to happen over the next 5 years plus in Montana. And one of the ways we could preserve is to maximize the debt and play with that. A lot of those properties may have really low rents if they've not been managed a certain way. And so I don't know if we'll be able to acquire or get more aggressive on the acquisition to hold and re-syndicate or put into the program or maintain. But like the property at Creekside, we have some really, that we bought in 2017, we have really low rents. And instead of having to consider losing the property or selling the property, if we can't actually re-syndicate, it can't come up with the math because everything is so complicated right now. Instead of losing them out of the program or taking that to market, could we incrementally add more than 5%? Could we look at doing some rent concessions, but navigating that world of bringing those rents up instead of those particular residents becoming homeless? And so this is a kind of a generic overall, but it warrants discussion, and I'd like to put it on the agenda for some of our QAP sessions to kind of talk through and as a whole. Go ahead,
Can I
Nicole.
respond, Bruce? Just because Ryan and I have been doing a lot of kind of internal procedural work about 5% rent increases, because we have been seeing more waivers. So Heather, you must have known I already had the QAP up. I've been working on it this morning, but we do have a section within the 5% rent increase for a waiver. And so we are looking at that on a project by project basis. And we have some items that we ask for, like financials and existing rents and proposed rents and things like that. And that 5% is a annual. So you could technically raise the rent 5% every year. But we do want to review that on a case by case basis. And full disclosure, I just denied a 9% rate for one project because we just thought it was too burdensome on the tenants. And their reasoning wasn't really that great after we reviewed it. So that waiver language is in there. When we comprehensively redid the QAP last year, we did look at some other kind of tactics to handle that. And I talked to a couple different states and theirs were just really, really complicated on how they handled those rent increase approvals. So we kind of just decided to stick with the 5% at the waiver language. So that's kind of where we're at.
Well, that makes sense. And it would be certainly we wouldn't ever want to compromise tenants, but if there was a longer conversation that could be had, that'd be really, really important.
Yeah, we can definitely add that to our QAP sessions and have more conversations off this call too.
Great.
Awesome. And just as a
Julie?
plug too.
I see Julie Flynn wants to weigh in too.
Oh, go ahead, Julie.
I actually was going to shift gears a little bit, just because I see several folks on here that focus on single family issues. And my group and I have been involved in several conversations with folks thinking about very creative ways to try to continue to get income eligible folks into homes in this crazy market. So I just wanted to point out that Jacob Kuntz is on, and Kim Morisaki and Ermina Harold. So if others of you who are on here are interested in homebuyer programs and producing homes that are affordable to regular Montanans, just know that there are those conversations going on. You can always reach out to my group to talk about that. And if you're on the lending side, to reach out with Julie Hope as well. We sometimes get each other's emails. So one of us needs to start going by our middle name or something, Julie. But just want to encourage or to let the group know that there are some creative approaches being considered out there, and hopefully they'll continue to gain traction and keep those programs going. Thanks.
Thanks, Julie. So it's 11:10 and we have 5 more minutes. So I just want to make sure folks can ask questions they might have. I do think the rent increase thing is a good thing to add to the discussion, and we'll get into it a lot more at the QAP sessions. So if folks don't know about those or want to attend them, please go to our website, and they're listed out there on our website. So
I don't want to be the one that asks all the questions, but if there's a couple minutes left, I'd love for Cheryl to speak to anything that she sees on the horizon at the legislature session coming up and planning. And I know there's the Housing Coalition, but is there anything that we as a group should be paying attention to or opportunities come down the pike?
I don't have anything concrete to share as far as legislative session. We're working through our executive planning process at the Commerce Agency level and submitted our kind of legislative proposals to the Budget Office. I believe that the Governor's Office did complete going through all of Commerce's proposals maybe at the end of last week or early this week, but I haven't seen the results of those yet. Two of the things that we've shared up the chain again is around state housing tax credit, as well as some cleanup language for the volume bond cap that kind of governs the tax exempt bonds that we use with 4% private activity bonds. But I think there is a lot of conversation, and I hear a lot of little like rumor mill stuff. But I think housing and affordable housing is probably going to be a pretty hot topic this legislative session. And so I think we should all just kind of keep our eyes and ears open for what may emerge over the next several months. But I think it'll probably get a little spicy this session.
Spicy is a good way to end it, Bruce.
they were pretty darn close. We've got chance for one more question if someone wants to jump in and ask it. So I'm going to open it up one more time for a 2-minute discussion on something, whatever that is.
And I can just chime in that, I'm in support of watching the rent increases and having reasonable caps on them so tenants aren't impacted, and especially with, the move to aggregator type investors buying up partnership interests in other entities and treating the properties quite differently. So I understand the goal behind it. I just had a slice and dice question. Thanks.
You bet.
And I'll do a shameless plug at the end if you don't mind, Bruce.
Hey,
And Michael, I can let you jump in, but if folks know anybody that's interested, we are hiring for a number of positions at Montana Housing, including an ARPA housing program director and a MIRA program manager for when Diana Culver-Vanek retires. And the goal of having this separate ARPA program director position is the idea that, my team and I are going to be able to sustain, 3 more years of COVID relief administration without there being some unintended or negative consequences on all of our permanent programs is just not terribly realistic. And so we don't know if we'll be successful in recruiting for this new position, but we're going to give it our darndest because we want to focus both on COVID relief and what's needed there, but also we want to be proactive in planning and strategizing how to best use our regular programs or retool them so we can best meet the needs, because we know affordable housing is at a crisis stage here in Montana. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Cheryl. Michael.
Hey, Bruce, just wanted to jump in and just encourage that we engage with our federal regulators and our congressional delegation related to some of the restrictions we're operating under on the rental side, the fair market rents being set at extremely low. They're dropping around the state despite record rent increases, and then the restrictions on the home ownership prices that can be covered by, the federal programs. Again, they don't match up to the market realities that we're facing in Montana. And I don't know if there is a way to engage with those folks to come up. It may require congressional pressure just to, it's just so painful to not only have the rental and housing price increases that we're seeing, but at the same time to have our federal partners be dropping, putting out information that we have to operate under that does not match the reality we're operating in.
So a great statement to end our session. We are at the witching hour or a minute late. So thank you guys. We are all around and we are on our website. So if you have further questions, we make ourselves available the best we can, and we encourage you to get in touch with us about just about anything. So thanks for everything you do out there, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.